Oh my gosh, women desire the most beautiful things in the whole world. Everything that a woman desires is just so heart-centered and is expanding for the collective and for other people. The things that women desire, I really believe in every ounce of my fiber. The things that women desire is what will change the world.
Yes. Welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Love. I'm so happy to be joined by the beautiful, intelligent, and wise. You are our muse for today, Dr. Amanda Hanson. We're going to be talking about your new book. It's called Muse, The Magnetism of Women Who Stop Abandoning Themselves. Thank you for joining us, Amanda.
Well, thank you for having me. I love talking all things musings.
So tell us about the title of your book, Muse, and what that means.
Yes, I think that women are often, young girls, let's start with, young girls into early womanhood are indoctrinated into this belief and this philosophy that there's to look outside of themselves to have a sense of who they are, whether it's approval, love, worthiness. It's always this idea of let me look outside to see if I'm getting the nods and the approval for my own life. And what I really would like women to start doing is learning how to become the muse of their own life and paying attention most to internally what is lighting you up, what is really feeling like it's coming from your internal guidance system, as opposed to strangers or people who have different plans and ideas for what they want you to do with their life. I really want women to learn to become that internal muse as the guiding system for their entire lives.
I really love that.
Mm.
You say in the book that it's important that as girls, women, that we, and a lot of us don't have this, that we have a woman
Mm.
who shows up in her glory, in her womanhood, in love with herself, really. And
Yeah.
and I think that, you do point this out, and I think it's true. That's very rare,
Mhm.
right?
And it's very
Um,
damaging to the generations that come. Yeah.
it really is. Like, I think about, the women my mom's age, for instance, and how I grew up in that culture of being that little girl that went to Weight Watchers with my mom. I
Mm.
watched her look in the mirror and hate her body and speak out loud that way, you know? And then that, of course, translated to me looking at my body in if my mom doesn't love her body, then that means like and I am from my mom. Like, and I can see that my body, even as a little girl, is shaped like my mom's body,
Yeah.
right? Because genetically I'm half her.
Right.
And I'm thinking, so that means something's wrong with me.
Correct.
And and that I think is just so prevalent. And
Yes,
yeah.
it's an internalized message from this time this girl is so little that is already beginning to critique and search for what is wrong rather than what is right. It is a very devastating undercurrent that plays in the background of every woman's life.
And so you were working as a clinical psychologist for 35 years. Is that correct?
No, no, for 20,
25.
yeah, 25, 27 now. Yeah. Mhm.
Yes. And so what were you doing in your clinical practice for those 25 years? And then how did you end up where you're doing now? Like you're it's all about women empowerment. You're an author, you're a speaker, and you're helping women come into their own power. So can you tell us about your journey on working
Yes.
as a psychologist and now where you're at
Yes.
now?
Previous to, so everything I'm doing is still as a psychologist, right? But
Yeah.
previous to the past 5 years, I was doing traditional armchair therapy where the woman comes into the room, sits in her chair, tells me about what's going on in her day or her week, the continual struggles or, what's still plaguing her from childhood. And we stay on the merry-go-round for quite some time. And I have a sneaking suspicion over the years that something's missing. Something is terribly flawed about the system that I was trained in. And when I got my doctorate. And then what I really started to piece apart was, oh my gosh, of course, Amanda, just like religion, just like science, just like philosophy, everything's been written by men for men. So has psychology. So you're only actually able to get a woman so far because the biggest piece of what women need is missing from traditional psychology. So as I started doing some breakout sessions and hosting like 10-week series with groups of 20, 30 women at a time, I started to note really remarkable changes because we were using a lot more somatics. We were tapping into a lot more rage and also doing it collectively in a group. And when you come together in a group, what you're able to move through is a quantum experience because you hear other women asking questions and then me responding to her. It might not have been a question you'd ever thought to ask because you hadn't fully formulated it yet, but you hear that woman ask it, you hear me respond to it, and light bulbs are just going off like crazy for you. So I don't really work one-on-one with clients anymore because I think it's a faulty system. I don't think that there is, I believe there's a time and place for it, but I don't believe in the work that I'm doing, we're going to get there in a one-to-one. So I do cohorts of 30 women from around the world for a 6-month deep dive journey. And those are ongoing and constant and literally taking women's lives and completely turning them inside out and dissecting places and answering questions they've never not only considered, but never even knew was a question to explore and might have an answer connected to that little subtle suffering that lives in the background, kind of like the white noise that's playing in the background of your life where something just feels a little bit off, but you can't put your finger on it because when you look at your patriarchal checklist, you've got all the things checked off. But it was a list that was curated by men and the patriarchy. And so it's not going to feel satiating for a woman in her life.
Mhm. You're talking about the collective, and I really, you share these examples of how you started out bringing women together in groups in your home, right? You invite women to come and to have these deeper conversations, right? Alcohol free. People are coming in, and you've got a box with paper and pen, and please put your questions in. Like, I just love this invitation, Amanda, on bringing women together. Like, I am so fortunate in my life where I have really amazing friendships. I could honestly say with different groups of women. I grew up with 9 best friends. We're still best friends, the 10 of us. And in the city I live in now, which is not where I grew up, I've got groups of women, like profound, amazing, beautiful, intelligent, strong,
Yeah.
successful women who are very attuned to themselves and on a mission to love themselves and be the best version of ourselves. We're not looking for the material. It's not like that. But I think that that's rare. As I say that out loud, I think that's rare for
Extremely rare. 9 best
yes.
friends. I've never even heard of that.
It is rare. But what I want to ask is like, and you do talk about the importance of this, surrounding ourselves with it's like leveling up the people that we are surrounding ourselves with and how important that is. So like you talk about it in the book, but how like if a woman wants to like how important it is to have this collective consciousness around you, how do you form that? How did you go about having women come into your home and like do these gatherings?
Well, that I just put a request out on Facebook, right? Because that was
Yeah.
something that I was longing for even more personally, because I realized that possibly by default where I was living, my best friend has never lived in the last 15 years in the state that I've lived in. There was a time where we lived in the same state and how we met, and we were in the same industry, and we're still the best of friends and see each other multiple times a year. But I wanted proximity to more women like that. And I thought, I can't be the only one. There have to be more women like that. So at the time, many years ago, I just went onto the mom's Facebook group in my town and said that I wanted to start having more conscious conversations with women, alcohol free, and that I was going to be opening my home. And I was curious who would be interested in something like this if we set this up and did it for 6 months. And I would host all of them. And I had like 147 women say yes. And I had 60 some women come to the first one, and half of them brought alcohol. And I asked them to leave their bottles of wine at the door because I wanted to do this alcohol free. I wanted to create a culture of women who had beautiful conversations, not after they had a couple of sips of wine. I'm really tired of that as well. I'm tired of always having to have a glass women having to have a glass of wine in their hand to say anything vulnerable. So, half the wine bottles were left at the door with the shoes, and only half the women came back. And I would say 30 some women came for the remainder of the 6 months, and it was profound and incredible and amazing. And I think that if you want to curate more conscious relationships, more beautiful, intentional friendships, you have to lead that. We can't just sit there and wait for the world to drop them onto
Right?
our laps. Like we have to be that change in the world, like the quote says, right, that you want to see. And you also have to be willing to be lonely for a while because oftentimes letting go of and gently releasing relationships that are more surface oriented but make you feel like you have friends because it has your calendar busy and you have, obligations. I don't want women to confuse a busy, full calendar and things to do with very deeply satisfying friendships or relationships. So sometimes there's that liminal space as you've released what no longer serves you, but you're waiting to yet call in what it is you're desiring. Being comfortable with that spaciousness within yourself, and which is also a really beautiful place to be.
It really is. It's funny because I remember when you were telling a story about how, you had 120 people, 60 people show up, and then the second time, for the long haul, it was like half that group. I remember when I was pregnant and I joined this yoga mamas things. I'm like, I need to meet mums. Like I'm first time mom here. I don't know what the heck I'm doing, and so I joined the mom's yoga. I had never even had experience doing yoga, but I'm like, this is definitely in a place I can meet hopefully somebody.
Right.
And I gave everybody back in the day, we didn't even have our phones all the time. Imagine that. But so I gave everybody like my piece of paper with my phone number and an email and said, like, please contact me. Like, I want to host all of us. And so I had a group of like 25 women show up, bring cookies, whatever.
Yeah.
And now I've got my five best friends that they're yoga friends, but the yoga mamas. None of us do yoga anymore on a regular basis, but the 25 dwindled down to five, right? But it is about I just want to, before we go on, talking more about your book, I just think the power of women in a group is so healing. And it really, really is. It's like you said, you could do all the talk therapy in the world, which I haven't a great therapist. I get it. But I think spending time with like-minded women and just talking about like even when you're being able to be so vulnerable and emote and just talk about like use your intelligence and collectively, you're going to come out stronger and wiser. Just yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And women ideally who will call you higher, right? I mean,
Right.
that's the sweet spot. Not women who are going to stay in the commiseration vibe and stay in that place of everyone commiserating about how awful things are, but the women who are going to say, there's a different way we can do this, right? Let's reimagine this. What other story could we tell here? How could we see through a different lens on this? I am not interested at all in having relationships that pacify me. I only want to be in relationships that are pushing me to my edge to go higher. And that's why I have one best friend, because it's a very unique woman who's willing to herself as well continue wanting to go higher and not just stay in the comfortable misery.
Oh my goodness. Staying in the comfortable misery. So, something you teach in your book is about going from self-loathing to self-honor.
Mhm.
How do we do that? I mean, I'm programming my mind to love to say loving things to myself like on a regular basis now. I catch myself. It's a very conscious process. Um, but it's like old programming of the loathing, the self-loathing.
Well, it makes sense. You watched your mom self-loathe. She
Hmm.
took you right along for the ride, right? So your coding, your programming from a very impressionable age was to loathe yourself. And
Yeah.
you will have to work for a very long time. All of us will, right? And this is important to say. I don't want women to think if they're doing it for a short period of time, it's like, oh, it's not working. If you have spent 30 years loathing yourself, we don't say a few positive things for a couple of weeks and imagine that it's all going to turn around. You'll have to say positive things for the rest of your life because you're trying to override a system that had early indoctrination that is coded inside of your cells and your blood and in your bones. And so for me, the work that I do, and I teach this at Magnetic, which is my live event every year for hundreds of women, and is a part of my personal lifestyle, is I do a mirror practice, a 3-minute mirror practice every single morning. Before I turn on my phone, before I brush my teeth, before I do anything whatsoever, I revere and honor myself in the mirror. This isn't from a place of, wow, Amanda, you look so tired, or wow, you've got a lot more silver hair coming in. It's from a place of the awe and the miracle and the reverence, because I think that we spend so much time in the mirror looking at what's wrong. And so even that, even the process of getting ready, like if we really, like my work really breaks stuff down. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to go too far into it because it can be a bit much. But when you really start to break stuff down, like who are we getting ready for? Is your face, is your body an object for other people's approval? Are you an ornament for the world? Or are you an instrument for your one and only life? And you can't meet the reverence if you're applying and covering up to go and perform. You meet it when you stand there and you have that spaciousness with yourself. And so the mirror practice is something that I've been doing for several years now and has literally, I can feel the configuration inside of my body is different. I walk differently. I speak differently. I fuck differently. I sign contracts differently. I call in money differently. I serve differently. I love differently. I parent differently because I am now different. Not from anything on the outside, but because I took that time every morning in my most tender moments, that 3 minutes after waking up, and I held that space for my humanity. And doing that has allowed me to come to know an internal part of me that I would not have had access to if I was viewing myself in the mirror from toxic beauty culture.
So, Amanda, what are you saying to yourself in those 3 minutes?
It's different every single day. There's no mantras.
No.
It's nothing.
Okay.
I don't repeat mantras because I don't feel like they're real. I don't believe in affirmations, and I'm not saying that other people won't find them helpful. I want to hear what's inside of me. I
Mm.
want to hear what's going to come up, right? So if I'm slathering on some words that I read somewhere, that's not organic to me. So it's very different what comes up for me every single day, but I'm willing to just stand there and be, right? And some mornings it's very silent. Some mornings the tears stream down my face. Some mornings I'm so in awe that I can't even believe that this is actually real, that this is actually happening, that I am blessed to be having this experience and lead. I feel that time is my opening and my connection to the divine. So I'm just allowing whatever's meant to be that morning to be. And I'm not judging the experience.
Wow. What a beautiful way to
It's a
start
very
the day.
holy practice.
And
Yeah.
important. Yes, it is. It sounds very holy. Um, it's one of my one of the greatest realizations that I got from your book. There was a lot. So thank you. Was around just thinking about even just our media. Okay. And we I know this, but actually you broke it down even further on how everything that we are consuming, watching, movies, TV, you think about it, like all of that is produced, created by a man.
Mhm.
Right? So the film industry, if you were to break it down, is like, I don't know what the percentage was.
Over 78%.
78% of movies are directed and created and written by men.
Mhm.
And you're thinking, wow, like I know that to be true, but it's like when you actually think about that, right? And all the messaging, it's like
Mhm.
all the scripts, it was written by a man. And so you think, and this is what we are watching and listening to. And so that's
It's
not
why we all
serving.
sometimes feel crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because the world's reflecting back that this is what women want. And we're like, no, but that's not what I want. I know that's what
Right.
they're showing in the movies, but that's not what I want in this relationship. I want more. Oh, well, you're too much. Then you're never going to be happy because the whole world is swirling in this really limited storyline that is profoundly insulting to the average woman.
It really is, right? And yeah, like you give example of like, for instance, get the Real Housewives, all that show, all those shows, and it's like. the drama, like that's directed by a man, written by a man, and all the acting, right? It's like, and you, I've heard this, like that the Real Housewives, the minute the cameras turn off, they're friends, right? But the drama is like there has to be conflict between these women because sisterhood is not, it's not real, right? Like women are supposed to be catty, they're supposed to be against each other, pitted against each other, fighting over men, all of this garbage,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's
So
pitiful.
yeah. So you talked about rage in the beginning. Can you talk about the importance of rage and really what is, you know, there's a difference between being angry and the emotion of rage or
Yeah.
the actions of rage. Can you break that down for us and why that's important for women?
Yeah, I think that any woman who would claim she doesn't have rage, I'm deeply concerned for her. Um, because if you just look at the world right now, just take an average brush stroke across the world and what women are going through right now. If a woman doesn't feel rage in her bodily system, then she's asleep. She's unconscious. If she doesn't feel rage for what her ancestors have been through, the women who've walked before her, the fact that they were silenced and raped and all of the things, women as the very first slaves. If we, you know, don't feel some rage about a system that continues to profit off of women and take from women and frack from us, I think that those women, I believe, are unconscious. And I don't think the collective is ever going to shift until women come into consciousness around that. So I teach a rage release practice that I learned the original art form of it from Mama Gina, Regina Thomashower.
Mhm.
I've kind of made it my own, and I teach it at my lab event, Magnetic, as well as in my 6-month journey. Rage release is an essential part in the same way that I brush and floss my teeth every day. I would not go through my week ever without my rage release practice. It's my emotional hygiene. Number one, because if you're living in the world, we are taking so much on, hearing little things coming in from the news, something happening in your own personal life that has, whether it is a trauma from childhood, something that you saw your grandfather beat your grandmother, or you heard the stories of it, whatever it is, right? We are carrying all of that inside of us. It's not like we're just born into the world and we're just this clean slate. You absorbed everything when you were in your mother's womb that she was going through. And so this gets passed down by, several generations into our bodies and our nervous systems. And so well, none of that was my responsibility. What is my responsibility is to be hygienically squeaky clean. If I'm not squeaky clean, I contaminate my husband, I contaminate my children, I contaminate this interview, I contaminate my clients, I contaminate people who didn't actually cut me. Right. So it is my
Mm.
job to make sure I'm always communing with my rage and releasing it out of my body so that it doesn't come into the beautiful parts of my life and make me say no when I want to say yes or vice versa. So I take my emotional hygiene practice as serious as I take brushing and flossing my teeth. Because if you don't, you're swallowing all that bacteria. It's the same with the world. You can't move through the world and not offload that rage because you'll just keep swallowing it and taking it into your being. And that's why we have 80% of women in the world have autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune diseases are caused by inflammation. Inflammation is often when we're taking in all this emotional stress, we're not processing it, the body has to do something with it, so the cells absorb it and start to mutate and do whatever they're doing, right? And we also know that the risks of breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and uterine cancer are so high for women, again, absorbing so much rage, so much unprocessed emotion. So it is a life-saving practice as well.
I put down page number 171 when you talk about the gratitude trap. I was like, wow. When I read this because I love the fact that we are constantly like I'm on this my life's journey is all about learning and growing. And if I stop learning and growing, I'm probably gonna die. So my last maybe my last breath, but I'm still gonna be learning after I leave this body. So there you go.
Yes.
Um, but it's all about the you say there's something called the gratitude trap. We've become very good at being able to write our gratitude lists, which is a great thing. But you point out that when you ask rooms of women um, to write down their gratitude, people can list all the millions of things. I mean, I do gratitude throughout my day, every morning, every night, and as I'm living my life through the world. It's easy for me to like think through gratitude. But what you say, which I think is so powerful, is like when you ask women to list their desires, they have a very hard time doing that. Wow, isn't that interesting? And just like, just my mind was blown. I'm like, I could see that. So where do you think that comes from, Amanda? I mean, you had your clinical practice work. Like, I think it's because I think men, it's so easy for them to come up with their desires,
Right.
right?
Well, I think again, we've raised women on this idea of like, well, he's a good enough husband. Just be grateful you have a roof over your head. Be grateful someone married you, now that you're divorced with 3 children. Be grateful that you even have a job. So what? They're not paying you the same as a man. Just be grateful, keep your head down, keep going. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, sometimes men are going to make comments about your skirt or your butt or your legs. I mean, just be grateful you have a job and keep the peace. Right. We are raised to be grateful for what we have, not to yearn for more, not to dream bigger.
Mm,
Right. And so I am a woman who's been forever ravenous, openly ravenous for life. And no
mm.
matter how much I have, I always want more. It doesn't negate the things I have gratitude for. I am overflowing in gratitude. But what I want for this life is big, if not bigger. And when you ask a woman what she wants for her life and what she desires, when you really help her get down to it, because sometimes I have women just weeping. They're like, I don't know. It's been so long since I've checked in. If we keep a woman paying attention to her desires, she may rock the boat. She may throw the system off, right? We want her to just be grateful for what she has so she keeps serving her people. That's her number one job. And if
Right.
there's one extra moment in the day, maybe she can read a chapter in a book and be inspired, but only if that's like at midnight, right? And she has 1 minute left before she passes out from exhaustion. But when I do sit with women and we talk about what is it that you desire, oh my gosh, women desire the most beautiful things in the whole world. Everything that a woman desires is just so heart centered and is expanding for the collective and for other people. The things that women desire, I really believe in every ounce of my fiber. The things that women desire is what will change the world.
Yes.
Every time a woman desires something and she creates a business from it, she not only pays herself well so she can help her family, she employs other women, pays them well, and teaches them new things and new skills. If this desire for my business to go global hadn't been my desire, and I was just grateful for my small private practice, I wouldn't have reached over 400 million women in 3 years around the world, right? I have women writing to me from across the world every single day saying that this work has saved something for them, turned on a light, made them leave an abusive marriage, because my desire helped light up the world, just like yours does, just like every other woman. So I am a huge fan of let's fan the flames of women who have big desire. That's why in my friendships, we talk about what do you want? Take it 10 times bigger. She takes it 10 times bigger. How do we 1,000 times this? Yes, we're grateful for what happened. How do we make it bigger?
And
Because
how can I help you? Right? Because we want to help each other. I love it when my friend, like when we sit around and we talk about, okay, what are you working on next? Okay, I'm gonna call this friend. I'm gonna post that for you. We're gonna, because we are community heart led
yeah,
people. That's what women. That's who we are, and we're
yes.
all about lifting each other up. So,
Great. And so
yeah,
if we can hold that to be true and dismantle this idea, this patriarchal structure that women are meant to compete with one another, be jealous of one another, we have
right.
to deconstruct that.
Yes, we
Imagine
do.
what happens. We deconstruct this, then we have this collective heart-centered, powerful force of women around the world. Imagine what happens. It's like, whoa, when I bring my 30 cohorts of women together, I just held a retreat, the closing ceremony for them this weekend here in my home. And they sat in this huge circle in my living room, and it was so emotional and overwhelming as they looked around the room and saw how much power was in that one place. And what was possible if every woman stopped doubting herself, stopped wondering if she was good enough, and all rose into their power, which now, after the 6 month journey, they're all doing. But had they not done this work, there were some blind spots, right? Because my work is very confronting in the most epic way. It helps
Mm.
you literally move through shit that you've been struggling with for decades. Because I play no bullshit if you can't tell. Like we get right to the heart of it because I'm not interested in wasting a woman's time on her self-development journey or my own time. Like, let's actually get through all of this because I do think the traditional psychology keeps us kind of talking about the same things year after year after year. And these women, the potential of what they could have created in that time is amazing and often a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I agree.
My
Wow.
goal is like, how do we do this work so potent and so efficiently with such a huge arsenal of tools to help her for the rest of her life if she wobbles, so that she can go out and just light up the sky. We need all the women out there
Yeah,
lighting up the sky.
we really do. So you teach you teach a relationship course as well, don't you, Amanda? So can you tell us about that? Because I mean, this is all about relationships, right? Let's talk love. This is what we talk about all day long. We've got every year I host a summit in Vancouver where we bring in psychologists like yourself to teach us how to level up our relationships from, you know, our familiar relationships, our friendships, and of course our partnerships.
Yeah.
So you yourself renewed your own marriage, right? You've been with your husband for a very long time, but there was a period of time where you share that your marriage was, you know, you thought this might have to end,
Yeah.
but you managed to renew, you know, create another relationship, which I think is very, um, I think it's fantastic. Like if you're with somebody for a very very long time, you've probably had 3 or 4 or 5 different relationships within that one relationship,
Absolutely.
right?
My husband says we've been married, it'll be 29 years in August. We've been together 30 years, and he says he's had about 18 wives,
Yeah.
which I find amazing and I think is very true because there is nothing in nature that is still and static
Hmm.
30 years later. I've never seen a tree that's the same 30 years later. Right?
Right.
And so, like Mother Nature, because I am a part of that, I am forever moving and changing and evolving. And when we got married, I met him when I was 21. We got married when I was 22. I was a princess still, like
Hmm.
all girls that age. Naturally, you're in your
Yes.
princess era. You're a maiden, right? And then life happened and careers started. We moved around the country multiple times for jobs. We started our own family. We had children. And through this journey, I am forever evolving and changing, as is he. I'm forever evolving and changing as a woman. There's no way that what we said yes to 29 years ago is still fundamentally the same. That thread that connected us then is different now because I have died and been reborn so many times on that journey. And so we had to renegotiate the terms of our relationship. I'm like, you married a princess who said, yes, that sounds like a good idea. Yes, let's do that. Yes, okay, great. Yes, okay. Because I had no father figure, I had no man in my life, right? And so I was like, yes, whatever you say sounds wonderful. Yes, yes, yes. I'm not a yes girl anymore because I'm a woman now of 52 years who's traveled a lot of different paths. And I've arrived at this unbelievable place of knowing myself that I didn't know when I was 21 and I met him. I didn't know myself. I was an infant, right? And so what I decided through the journey and the years, what I wanted from this marriage and in this marriage was very different than what I said yes to. And there was a moment of like, I don't know it at Mark 18 if we were going to make it or not. And I filed for divorce because it was feeling more and more clear to me that what I wanted was not going to be possible, at least not possible with him. Um, and then, we were at our very last mediation appointment about to sign the paperwork, and he said, I will quit my job. I will do absolutely anything to save this marriage, to save this family. What do you want from me? And it was the first moment that I felt like he woke up. And so the mediator said, I'll give you 6 months. Why don't you go and figure this out? And if you come back before 6 months, we'll reopen the case, sign the papers. After 6 months, we'd have to begin again. And I said, okay, let's give this a try. And the biggest thing that happened, I thought it was going to be this list of expectations from him. But the biggest thing that happened actually on that drive home is I started to have this moment of, I'll never forget this. The biggest thing that landed in that moment for me, he's there, this open vessel, willing to walk away from his entire career, which was what was really driving a wedge for us because he was gone around the world Monday through Friday. I realized, okay, maybe it's not him actually quitting his job, Amanda. Maybe it's you actually not thinking what it is you want and saying something different. What if the thing you think, as vulnerable and hard as it's going to be to say, what if you actually say that? What if you say the really, really vulnerable things that have been in there forever, but you've never actually said, you've just been too angry, right? So I was going about it like, if things don't change, this marriage isn't going to work out and I'm not going to live like this anymore. I'm tired of raising the kids by myself and trying to balance my career with it. So I was angry.
Mhm.
But what I really wanted to say was, "I miss you."
I knew you were gonna say that.
I
Yeah.
miss us.
That what's underneath it? What is underneath? Like the most tender, true that your heart what does your heart wanna say?
But I was not ready to go there, right? Because
Mm,
the thing that he loved so much was how strong I was. And so in the back of my mind, it was like, for so many years, don't show him. Because I interpreted the fact that I wanted him around more as being weak, that I couldn't hold my career and him without feeling exhausted, or the kids without feeling exhausted all the time. But the beauty was like, no, I don't want it to be this kind of a struggle. I want on Thursday night for us to walk to soccer practice together with the kids. I don't always want it to be me folding
yeah.
laundry until 11:30 at night and barely getting any sleep because I have to get up and pack lunches before the day starts yet again. I'm tired. I'm lonely. I'm really lonely, right? Like I didn't say any of those things. So I decided, what if on that drive home, I thought, what if you actually try the most vulnerable version of yourself for the next 6 months and see what happens? And well, here we are, 20,
Wow.
almost ready to celebrate 29 years of marriage. And a lot has changed in our marriage. A lot of renegotiation has happened because that was not the life I signed up for. And, interestingly, my daughter, who's 22 now in a 3-year relationship, she says, I never, ever want to do what my mom and dad did. My mom raised us by herself. My dad was
Mhm.
gone. I never want to be in a marriage like that. So, him even picking his career was really important to my daughter, right? Like watching us and learning from that and saying, like, how do we craft something different? Because I don't want to do it alone like my mom did.
I really love that example, Amanda, that you shared about your daughter too, but about your relationship because I think if we are in relationships where we are, I mean, the title of your book is The Magnetism of Women Who Stop Abandoning Themselves. And it's like we know too much not to, like, if you want to have a full, rich life, you can't be in unhappy relationships. It's gonna cost you. You're gonna be abandoning yourself over and over and over again.
I abandoned myself over and over because in my family, on both sides of the family, nobody had ever not been divorced. And so my family had so much pressure on me that I was my wedding, my love story, it was a fairy tale how we met, everything. Everyone was watching and there was so much pressure to hold it together because I was going to be the one, at least the stories that everyone told us, I was going to be the one who finally had the dream come true. So I felt like I was also doing it not to disappoint the rest of my family and my people and my children. And so I was living a life that wasn't happy for me, but I was doing it to make everybody else happy. Meanwhile, completely abandoning myself the whole entire time.
Right. And so you were able to transform your marriage, and I think that
And it's
but,
still a work in progress, like, it's never
of course it is. Of course it
reliable.
is. Yeah, but you're now in your I feel the same way about myself. I'm 47 years old, and I started out as a princess, and you talk a lot about that in your book, around changing ourselves from this princess energy and our actions and our thoughts to becoming the queens that we are.
Yeah.
Can you give us a few examples of, like, what a princess represents versus a queen?
Yes, I think that a princess is pleading to be heard, and a queen is
Mm.
leading and is heard,
Oh, I like that.
right? I think a
Yeah.
princess is begging for approval and love, and the queen is self-approving and self-loving. I think that the princess is uncertain of her opinion, so she quietly starts to say something and she looks around to see if anyone's nodding before she goes on, and the queen states.
Yeah.
So, and the princess is waiting for someone to come and rescue her and help her in her life, and the queen is the one who rescues herself and is the one who helps herself. So, I think it's a lot of the princess is constantly seeking, think of anything, right? Seeking outside of herself, and the queen is becoming the thing that she's seeking.
Yes. Wow. So you have a framework for rooting into yourself, into oneself. And there's 11 things, and there's no way we've got time to go through them all. But I love your book and the fact that it gives you practical ways to do each of these things. For instance, I know in the book you talk about the rage, the rage practice. I haven't done it yet, but I tend to do it because, I mean, if you're doing this every week, like, and I love this idea about keeping your hygiene, your emotional hygiene, yourself clean. Like that is a powerful, like, I can see it in my head and in like my whole being. I've got to keep my hygiene, my emotional hygiene clean. So I got to do my rage process, and I will do it. Um, but part of this is cleaning up and detoxing what you absorb.
Yeah.
So this is about paying attention to, like we've talked about, who you're spending time with,
Mhm.
what you're watching, what you are absorbing, like just in your every, like the relationships you keep, um, what you're reading, like what other things would you would you say is included in that? And cleaning up and
My
detoxing.
Yeah, the playlist on my phone, right? Who I'm
Oh
following on
yeah.
Instagram. It's unless it fills
Yeah.
me in a way that feels beautiful and soulful, if it's degrading, if it is toxic beauty culture, any of that, it has no business anywhere in my realm. Because if I'm sitting, to me, the way like I raised my daughter to think about this as well, if I am sitting eating a bag of Doritos every single night, somewhat unconsciously, I'm just sitting there eating them, and I wonder why night after night I feel so bad and I have these stomach aches. It's like, well, I might want to think about what I'm eating. It's the same with social media, whatever images you are seeing and taking in. So as a woman at 52 who is consciously not coloring my hair or doing any kind of Botox, if I fill my social media feed with all these women who are filled with Botox or med spas, you can imagine unconsciously the effect that's going to have on me. So I keep my space, just like my home, I keep my home squeaky clean. Every single object that comes into my home has a meaning that serves me and my life and my family, as does every social media following that I feed follow. Every song, my playlists are so curated for that reason. There's a link actually when you buy my book, there's a link to some of my playlists, just a handful of them. But my music is curated, right? Like everything that I do has a purpose. There's no haphazardness to my life. I watch almost no TV at all because I find it to be such a waste of it's a waste of my life to watch other people live their life or some fantasy life takes away from me actually living my own life. So I very much curated this gorgeous place inside of my life and conversations, right? Like I am really meticulous about the kinds of conversations that come into my world. Like my kids will tell you there is no small talk. We don't even talk about items. Our conversations since the time they were very little are big and deep and profound, and that's just I'm intense. I'm a very intense person. And I think that if I'm lucky and this all goes well, I've got like 100 years and I'm not going to waste 5 seconds of it.
Mm,
I've wasted enough time being sad
yeah.
and angry, and I'm not wasting another minute.
Yeah. So the number 11 on your list is living the story you want to tell at the end of your life. I think that's just it's something that I'm writing a book right now, and one of the chapters that I haven't written yet, but it's going to be is around legacy, and that's exactly what it is. It's like living, your living will. You know,
Yeah.
what if you were to die tomorrow, even today, what would people stand in the room at the top in the top of the room saying about you? And it's like hopefully it's all the beautiful ways that you showed up for them and showed up for your own life and for yourself in such like in the best way possible, and that you made such a big impact, a positive impact in other people's lives. And 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 if you're not, if that doesn't resonate, it's like, how can you live your best life now? Like, what are you waiting for? Right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's about living a very brave and very bold life, doing the thing, saying the thing that isn't necessarily mainstream, that isn't always the most popular, but will go on long after you are gone. And people will say, she was onto something. She knew, just like Martin Luther King, he didn't really become popular until after he was dead. His likability scores were very low when he was alive, by Black people and white people. And it was like after he was dead, everyone puts his quotes everywhere because only then, after he's gone, everyone was like, wow, he was really onto something. How are we even thinking anything differently? Right. And I think we're going to think that about womanhood in many ways because I think some of the things I say are uncomfortable and revolutionary and I'm very okay with that. I'm very okay with not being always liked because I know what I'm speaking is potent and powerful. And actually not always being liked is how I know I'm on the right track.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I think as I get older, I think I'm caring less about what people think because I know that I'm living from a very good, true, honorable place. I know that. And I think that in itself, it's like when I can have this much, like I love myself more than I ever have. And it's because I'm living in integrity with who I like. I know in places I wasn't living in integrity and I've changed. I'm doing everything I can to change that so that I can be so proud of myself, whether everybody or nobody's looking, right?
I don't even care if anybody's looking, like, even in my
No,
work, right? Like, we create the work and put it out in the world. It's not my business what the world does or how many likes or interactions it gets. It's like, I create the work and put it out there, and I'm turning and I'm serving clients and creating the next piece of work. And I think that's how people become very successful is when you start living a very embodied so everything that I teach, I don't teach anything unless I'm already living it or doing it. I'm profoundly embodied in my message, and I think that that is why clients come and stay in my world for so long is because they have tried many other places and have not felt that level of integrity, that level of grounding, and that level of truth telling in a lot of leaders. So I think that's what, yeah, I don't care. I know who I am, right? Like I don't have to convince anybody of who I am.
no, definitely not. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Amanda Hanson, for being with me today. I think
Well,
it's been such a like an important conversation for women to hear. And I've got 2 daughters, so I hope they listen and get something from it. So tell us where you can help. You said you lead the magnetism. Tell us about the work you do so people can follow or partake in learning
yeah,
with
I
you.
think the best way would just be to you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Midlife Muse. And obviously on my website, amandahanson.com, you can sign up for my newsletter. But I do Magnetic, which is a live event every year. It's going to be in December in Phoenix. Tickets don't go on sale until July. We just came back from Barcelona. We did one in Europe.
Wow.
And the very first one was last year in Phoenix. So it's remarkable. Women from all over the world come. It's a 2-day extraordinary. I would say it's where a concert meets a dance party, meets a theatrical performance, meets an embodied session. So it's pretty
Mm.
much everything in my book in real life with me leading from the stage this whole experience for 2 days and being with extraordinary women from around the world. So that's magnetic.
Beautiful.
And yeah, I have an online community. If you just go to my website, you'll find everything.
Wonderful. Well, we'll add it to the show notes. So thank you so much for being with us, and
Very
we'll see
much.
you on Instagram.
Okay.